Lear was waiting for his chance. He had even thought of all sorts of methods to attract the higher echelons of the Saint, however, he really had nothing to rely on. Lear did feel incredulous when he received the summon from the elders. He might have looked indifferent in front of Luo Fei, but he was anxious and desperate. He would sacrifice everything in order to gain power. There were days where he wished to die. Lear wasn't afraid of failure, he was afraid of becoming dispensable. Lear was perturbed. He didn't know why the elders were looking for him, but he knew that it was an opportunity, a unique opportunity which might spell the end of his life if he missed it. The door of the temple closed. Lear's heart skipped involuntarily when he saw those white robes. It was the great elder of the Saint, the supreme ruler. The great elder turned around slowly and sized Lear up. Lear looked up. He knew that he couldn't back off. However, his mind seemed to be struck by lightning once his eyes met the great elder's eyes. A majestic force shrouded him. This was the power of the heaven rank, as vast as the sea. Lear could feel his legs shaking, but his determination didn't allow him to yield. Lear would kneel, but his soul was still looking down on the world. The pressure disappeared as quickly as it appeared. It was just a few moments, but Lear was drenched. The great elder smiled. Lear, do you know why you were summoned? It was a question with no head nor tail, but Lear smiled slightly. Great elder, you summoned me to gift me a dangerous opportunity. Oh, this matter should be very dangerous, but it will also be the only opportunity for my current situation, Lear replied. The great elder smiled. He was indeed clever. The Saint had an abundance of power and martial techniques that allowed them to keep their power. However, that was also something that could lead to the Saint's downfall. That was why he had been absorbing fresh blood since he took over. Lear knew his own position. He wasn't stupid to think that he could fool anyone. What qualities do you think you have that's worthy of my attention? The elder asked. The Saint isn't lacking in power. This disciple's cultivation base is backward. However, this disciple believes that his mind is better than others. I also have tenacity and ambition. My desire for power has never diminished, Lear said. It was better to tell the great elder the truth rather than to play some cheap tricks. The great elder smiled. What can you give up for power? The price. Lear felt that this was fair. Life was a trade. That would depend on what kind of power that is, Lear said in a low voice. He wasn't an idiot. A person who agreed to everything readily had no value either. Lear was never one to diminish his value. How about a power to have Wang Zheng grovel under your feet? The great elder smiled. Lear bent his waist. Then, this disciple has nothing he can't lose. Very good and very smart. Your talent isn't bad, but it's not the best. Locks wouldn't be able to help you in terms of power gain. I'll give you a chance now. The elder clapped. A middle-aged, bespectacled man in a white coat walked out and looked at Lear as though he was a piece of meat. He smiled satisfactorily, revealing 2 rows of yellow teeth. I'm Mendel, the person in charge of the fusion of human and abyssal Zerg project. If it succeeds, we will be able to produce a perfect new species even more perfect than God himself. Mendel began feeling his specimen as he spoke. The great elder looked directly at Lear. This is the grand plan of the Saint. Creating new warriors with human and Zerg genes. If successful, we will grant you the position of an elder. Lear stayed silent. He understood immediately. This wasn't a new topic. However, what monster would result from bioengineering the genes of humans and Zerg? No one knew. However, it would cease to be human. It would be a monster with an existence even more inferior than that of a cyborg. This experiment requires you to have strong ambition. If not, it will only fail. You have to be sure. The great elder still carried a light smile on his face. Young man, this experiment sets the direction of human evolution. Human intelligence and the infinite life force of the Zerg. You could be freed from the restraints of the flesh and become a whole new species. Think about it, you'll become the new Adam of the new humans, the ancestor. Mendel was very satisfied with his experimental target. That pair of eyes didn't show an ounce of fear when he mentioned the experiment, they were calculating his benefits. That was excellent. Great elder, I've given it ample thought. I'm willing, Lear announced. The great elder nodded happily. Go, I'll give you some time to prepare. All your requests will be granted. Lear's expression didn't change. He could only accept it. He was now a fish on the chopping board. He had no power to refuse. His fate was set when the Great Elder chose him. What was he amongst the overload of candidates? His background was the weakest, he had no power to resist, nor did he have the support of any elder. He could only move on if he wanted to live on and become the regret of everyone. God would surely pinch your brain when he closed a door for you. Mendel rattled off incessantly about the benefits of the experiment along the way. A mad scientist would do whatever it took to realize his ideals. The failure rate of his experiment on humans was 100%. Of course, that also meant that he had obtained a lot of experience. Those ghouls he had created couldn't be considered successes. They always became monsters at the last stage of gene integration. Therefore, the subject's obsession and humanity were very important. The circle of elders had sent many strong subjects, but it was useless. They were all swallowed up by the gene. This wasn't the new human he wanted to create. What would be born between the two strongest races in the universe? That was the question the geneticist wanted to solve. It would definitely become a work of art that even God would be jealous of. Lear was listening seriously. He could be sure that it was extremely dangerous. Nonetheless, if it succeeded, it would bring him unlimited possibilities. In the past, he hadn't given others any choice. Now the world hadn't given him any choice either. He had nothing worth reminiscing anyway. Family? Loved ones? Fry? Professor Mendel, can I use my power to send someone away? Lear asked suddenly. You now have the same rights as the elders. Other than some sensitive matters and people, I believe the rest won't be a problem, Mendel said with a smile. Lear nodded. He wasn't stupid. The Great Elder had only given him this as a consolation. He wasn't going to use a made-up directive to order people around. It seemed like it wasn't going to pose a problem to send Luo Fei away. Luo Fei reacted like a fat cat whose tail had been stepped on when he heard the news. Boss, you don't want me anymore? Don't do this, I'll eat less. Lear did not know whether to laugh or cry. Idiot, I don't have use for you anymore, don't follow me. Go back while I'm still kind. Don't wait until I regret my decision. Lear was undoubtedly selfish. He had never denied it. However, this fatty wouldn't be of value to him in the route he was going to take. Failure would result in death. Success would result in a monster. Neither situation required this fatty. Professor Mendel, can I enter the experiment as well? I'm quite strong as well. Look at me, I'm greedy and have a fear of death. Therefore, I can definitely survive. One more person means a higher chance of success. Fatty said hurriedly. Mendel's eyes lit up. Ahem, this subject was not bad either. He might have been a little on the pudgy side, but his strength was there. The key to this experiment was the subject's willingness, it couldn't work without it. Lear sighed slightly. Luo Fei, do you know the consequences? Luo Fei scratched his head. Boss, two monsters won't be lonely if they are together. 1 meter of galaxy in the Oslan Royal College. Lin Weiyan started to enjoy life as a princess. Her daily life included trying to find inspiration for her music, writing a few lines of music scores, and shopping with her friends. Angela sighed. Lin Weiyan finally had the aura of a princess and was simply beautiful. However, she always felt that there was something lacking. Wang Zheng was away and Aina was busy with all sorts of diplomatic trips after the SIG. She was also spinning with activities with the scandal. She could only wait until they died down. Actually, her love life with Wang Zheng was quite pitiful. They had finally opened up about their relationship but had no time together. They had no privacy even when they were together. Weiyan felt that despite all the challenges, her big sister was still happy. At least their hearts were beating as one. Moreover, they should be chatting every single day. Technology was so developed nowadays, what was a little distance? Weiyan, however, was slightly lost now. Angela, what do you think about me going to Tita as a cultural exchange ambassador? Ahem, Angela understood Her Highness Weiyan's thoughts, but that was too obvious. The Prime Minister didn't pay attention to it before, but that didn't mean that she was ignorant. One case with Aina was enough. If even Highness Weiyan, the Prime Minister would definitely go crazy. Kashawin had been rational with Aina. I'm just saying, it's not like I really want to go and be a light bulb. Lin Weiyan interlaced her fair, white fingers together. Dong, dong, dong. Someone knocked on the door and opened it. A small head peeped through. Weein, you ain't doing anything naughty, right? I'm entering now. Qian Shuidi, you're the one doing something naughty, also, just come right in. You'll be dead if you are regarded as a thief by the guards. The two lawless joked with each other happily. Dong went on a trip to Hail Cloud and big sister Ruolyu is busy with God knows what. She doesn't have time for me, I'm so bored. Qian Shuidi started to complain about life after a while. Only them two out of the four had the luxury of living a carefree life amongst the four. Oh yeah, I was so bored that I started watching live streams. It was so funny. A fat ass was live streaming himself sleeping. Hundreds of people were watching, some of them even sent gifts. Did you send gifts as well, Weein? Do you want to try live streaming as well? You can broadcast yourself singing and I'll broadcast myself eating tidbits. They were on the road to no return once Qian Shuidi started down this route. Your Highness, Miss Qian Shuidi, you must not, Angela reminded them from the side. We might as well go shopping. Lin Weein brought Shuidi back to reality. Shuidi had always done whatever she wanted to do. It would be bad if she really started live streaming here. We can go shopping with just the two of us. The season's changing anyway, we have to change our wardrobes as well. They charged towards their shopping battlefield. Both lawless were VVIPs and showed no restraint in their purchases. Angela and Qian Shuidi's bodyguards were behind them all the time, on alert but without any nervousness. This was the heart of Aslan, there shouldn't be any danger. They were in high spirits, laughing and joking along the way, until something happened that broke this serene atmosphere instantly. Qian Shuidi's bodyguards suddenly knifed at Angela's abdomen. Angela wasn't weak herself, but her opponent's strength was beyond her imagination. Her resistance was futile. The other party was actually an Earth rank warrior. At the same time, there was an explosion in the mall. Screams, laser beams, the collusion of masters, everything was in chaos. Titan Star, Wang Zheng unleashed his attack and the movement of the last invader froze in time. The bones in the invader's body were crushed and he collapsed like a pile of dirt on the floor. Wang Zheng sucked the air hard. These invaders had very strong physiques. Their inner universes were all unleashed. Their levels might be different. 3 of them were masters who would have been top players in SIG, but they were now only assassins that had lost their lives. Where did all these fearless masters come from? He could feel that they wanted to capture him alive, which was why they had given him the chance to retaliate. If not, it was difficult to say who would still be alive. 15 of the giants brought by Rara Durai were dead. They couldn't absorb the attacks of the assassins. The attacks of those who had comprehended the inner universe were not simple to block. Lan Ling was also shocked at the scene when she arrived. It seemed as though a whole fleet of enemies had just stomped through. However, there were no mecha involved, yet Rara Durai was injured rather gravely. Lan Ling became solemn. Wang Zheng was now the spiritual leader of Tita. Who on earth was the enemy? Internal or external enemies? His skylink suddenly rang. It was Aina. Wang Zheng knew that she wouldn't have called if it wasn't for something important. Wang Zheng, something's wrong. Weein has disappeared. It was the first time Wang Zheng had heard such panic and terror in Aina's voice. Weein had disappeared. Wang Zheng felt a chill running down his spine as he looked at the dead assassins surrounding him. The same things happened not only on Aslan and with Wang Zheng, but also in other places. No terrorist group had ever dared to be so arrogant. In the Arbiter Republic, Mars and Olivius were undergoing special training in the Iron and Steel College. Students could choose to rest or go back to college after SIG. Mars had graduated, but Olivius didn't stay in Elite Academy X. He had to at least comprehend the inner universe before going back. He had no combat power now at all. It was better for him to be back in the Iron and Steel College to take advantage of the time to go over the SIG. It would be much better for absorption of what he had learned there than to waste his time away. Many people had the same plan. Aragorn might have died, but he had protected the honor of his empire. In comparison, the Van brothers had suffered a lot as well, but death was a relief for the weak. To live on was the true way of the warrior. They didn't have any backup plan and had to enter life and death battles time and again at breakneck speed. They had only one way to prove their worth, and that was to comprehend the power of the inner universe through the battle of the flesh. The greed and power of the Empire were built on unparalleled learning power. It was powerful because of its endless pursuit of them. Everything else would rot, only power would always be filled with vibrancy. The Arbiter Republic immediately initiated the research and study into the inner universe once they saw its power at the SIG. Failure, 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 the streaks of failure continued. Mars and Olivius had been suppressing the instinctive ability X and used their pure physical strength to fight. However, the results seemed to get worse as they persevered. Mars howled in fury. He was very familiar with the power in his body. What was the inner universe? It was the development of the energy in the body, while Ability X was utilization of external forces. He was very close. Originally, his innate power was more suited to cultivating the inner universe. However, owing to the influence of Ability X, he was forcing himself to use external forces rather than using the energy within his body. That was why he became a crazy warrior when he got angry, but that wasn't right. Moreover, even though he was always playing with death, he could already feel his inner universe. That was the true power that he had been chasing after all this while. Olivius could feel the change in his big brother. His aura was different. His punches were getting better. It wasn't purely an increase in force, but in substance. Inner universe. He had one foot in. Had it arrived? Bang! Right at this time, the door to the training room exploded. Dozens of shadows flew in. Mars' eyes flickered. Just in time. This surprise attack could be put to good use. Olivius, on the other hand, felt that something wasn't right. If it was an arranged training, why was there a need to bomb the door open? He turned towards the observation room on the second floor. A streak of fresh blood was on the transparent window. Where were the personnel? Be careful, Olivius shouted as his face changed. Who had the guts to start a killing spree in the Iron and Steel College? Boom! Mars' face changed, but it was too late. His opponent wasn't very strong, but he was someone who had comprehended the inner universe and had a mech glove on hand. The opponent backed away from the blow, but his right forearm was now broken. Who are you? He said nothing. More of their gang attacked. Every one of them was rather good. 3 had comprehended the inner universe. Die. Mars was on high alert. The fearless arbiter in him exploded as well. The only difference this time was that a source of power coming from within his body started flowing out. The inner universe and Ability X, spiritual and physical harmony. Boom! Mars grabbed the Forerunner and snapped his spine into 2 on his right knee. He hurled that person onto the opponent coming at him. Mars then swayed forward and caught the third person coming at him and spun him. That person's organs burst and he died on the spot. Mars then wrestled the guy behind him, killing him, and threw the dead body towards the others. A red excitement was in Mars' eyes. Come on, continue. How dare they underestimate the arbiters? The opponents were just seeking death. They might have comprehended the inner universe, but it was obvious that they weren't strong. Mars, on the other hand, had a breakthrough at such a critical juncture. He was battle-worthy. Mars was basking in glory, but Olivius was not so lucky. Olivius unleashed the Heavenly Overlord attack on one of them and tore him in half alive. Of course, these people were real assassins. They were trying to bait Olivius. A strong opponent had deliberately showed his weakness to bait him to show his own weakness. Olivius made mistaken, and in that instant, he smelled death. Everything went dark in that instant. A steel, wall-like figure erected in front of him and blocked all the attacks. No, all the killing attacks landed on Mars. These attacks were aimed at Mars, not Olivius, from the start. Mars only had this one brother. Mars had always stowed away his wings of glory when Olivius was around. He preferred his younger brother to shine brilliantly rather than enjoying the glory himself. That was because he was the big brother. The arbiters didn't speak much, but their feelings were the same. Mars had always felt that Olivius would become stronger than him. An assassin hit Olivius' neck hard at his hesitation. Mars and Olivius disappeared and the bodies on the floor were taken away as well. The training ground was only left in a mess with the bodies of normal guards. The alarm of the Iron and Steel College pierced everyone's ears thereafter. John D. Lillick had better luck than the Van brothers. He didn't suffer much because he was taken down by his beautiful female fans. The Saint wasn't the least bit afraid of the young with hobbies. It was so much easier to deal with such a person than people like the Van brothers, who were always on high alert. Of course, John D did suffer quite a bit as well. When John D. Lilac woke up, the two beautiful fans were staring at him. The gentleness from before was gone. Their acting was worth Oscars. The three of them stayed silent for quite some time. John D. Lilac didn't know where he was being transported to, but he had hardly any strength in him at all. It seemed like the other party had plotted it well. Mother of Kerr, was this human trafficking? He could feel the turbulence in the space shuttle. Why the hell did they mess with someone like him? Ahem, beauties, shall we have a chat since the journey is long? There's nothing to do anyway, John D. Lilac said. The two beauties ignored him. This disappointed John D. He had over-partied recently. His popularity had risen because of his guest commentaries in the SIG. His temperament and professional knowledge were huge hits, but that was why he was lying here now. John D. Lilac wasn't discouraged at being ignored. He talked to no one in particular with a smile. People from Manalasuo had quite a bit of confidence. The taller girl on the left finally couldn't take it anymore. I don't understand why someone like you is still alive. What a miracle. However, your luck has ended. John D. Lilac touched his nose. Mother of Kerr, he was being looked down upon by a little girl with huge tits and no brain. What the hell? What I actually wanted to say is, have you gotten the wrong person? See, I'm no beauty, and I can't make much money as a gigolo. If you kidnapped me, you should know that there are many others who are far richer. The possibility of you getting money from me is too low. John D. Lilac shrugged, trying to showcase the charm of a gentleman. Shut up. You'll know when we arrive. The girl on the right obviously didn't have a good temper. Beauties, I have been respectful toward you since the start. It's fate that we met. I'm now a fish on the chopping board, and you won't die from chatting, unless the organization behind you is inhumane. Rubbish, the saint is the destined one. The girl on the left suddenly covered her mouth and her eyes widened. You set a trap for me. John D. Lilac's pupils moved slightly and he smiled. What's there to trap? Only the saint would dare to do something like this with the current Milky Way alliance. I just don't understand the use of capturing me. John D. Lilac, there's no need for you to continue thinking. There's no harm in telling you either. The oracle has descended. The saint has to summon everyone who has the genes of the oracle. You are one of them. You might have the oracle on you, the tall girl said. John D. Lilac had certain understanding of the saint world and the saint. However, it seemed like the scope of their power was much more than what he had thought. Shouldn't you two be better to me since I might be the oracle? You're thinking too much, there are too many like you. We'll think about if you could stand out from the crowd. John D. Lilac's heart sunk. That meant that many people had been met with the same situation. What the hell was in the mind of this scary organization? However, John D. Lilac knew that the Federal Republic of Manalasuo would blow up soon. John D. Lilac's status might not be comparable to Lin Feng's, but he wasn't a nobody. Especially now, when he was popular amongst domestic students. Something was definitely wrong with his disappearance. The situation was more serious than he had thought. He wasn't the most famous one either. The disappearance of Lin Weiyan was sensational news in the Milky Way alliance. Every country was experiencing similar devastating terrorism activities. They might have kept this private in order not to cause widespread panic, but they couldn't contain the spread. The first princess of Aslan had been attacked, while the second princess had been kidnapped. Aslan was livid and exploded. Their loss from the SIG was still fresh, and many of the young people directed their anger towards the princess. The Aslan Empire could no longer control their anger. The Aslan Empire was now in a state of high alert. Every gate was strictly inspected. The eyes of every customs soldier were red. Every country had their bottom line. The princess was the symbol of their nation. How dare they do this to Princess Weiyan? The Arbiter Republic, the Federal Republic of Manalasuo, Hail Cloud Alliance, Lea Sphinx, and other countries were met with the same situation, though none as serious as the Aslan Empire. Aina was alright, since her guards were more numerous. But they didn't think that the terrorist would target Weiyan instead. She was at Monte Ellis after all. It was simply unimaginable that they would attack the princess right in their capital. This terrorist group had unimaginable penetration force to be able to launch such attacks all over the galaxy simultaneously. There were many people in history that wanted to conquer the world, but none had such great number of force and such deep penetrative power. An emergency meeting was held with the Milky Way Alliance. Kushawan's face was very ugly now. The eyes of the ironclad Prime Minister were now filled with murderous intent. Everyone knew that war relied on technology and money. The party which could hold out would be the one with the upper hand. That was why Arbiter acted arrogant but never had a direct conflict with Aslan. These terrorists had even dared to touch the princess. They weren't giving themselves room to maneuver. The whole Milky Way Alliance started moving. No one dared to vouch for the saint, especially now. They would rather wrongfully kill 1,000 of them than to let one guilty one get away. The Milky Way Alliance's forces were going all out. The Aslan Empire was definitely anxious. Weyan was a princess, not a prince. It would definitely be a lie if Kushawan said she wasn't worried. It was extraordinary that she had managed to remain so calm. The saint had finally surfaced. The Milky Way Alliance was a huge machine with their rules and systems. No one person or country could do anything unilaterally. Every country had their own problems, but it was not the time to go into that right now. The first thing they had to do was rescue their people. The disappearance of the expedition team was now linked to the saint. The Oracle Star might just be their base camp, which meant that would be the destination of those being abducted. A snake couldn't do without its head. Kushawan initiated a motion to remove Ryan and demanded the establishment of a temporary standing committee to deal with this unprecedented terrorist activity. Ryan clearly couldn't shrink from the responsibility of breeding such an organization. The other countries were enraged. They felt that the Aslan Empire was going overboard, but these were extraordinary times. It wasn't time to fight amongst themselves. They needed someone with power to act efficiently. The expedition this time would definitely be a joint force, but the main country paying for it would be the Aslan Empire. No one would object to their requests now. Ryan was removed through a 2/3 vote. Prime Minister Kushawan of Aslan was installed as the temporary president of the committee, owing to the special circumstances. The inauguration ceremony was simple and in line with Kushawan's style. She was really furious this time. Her strong Aslan Empire had been insulted. 2 steps were discussed immediately. The first step would be to form a fleet to head to the Oracle Star immediately. Special forces would also be transported to the Oracle Star through technical means at the same time. The second step would be for all the countries to launch a comprehensive operation for the cleanup of these terrorist organizations. Any country or individuals that harbored the terrorists would be the enemy of the entire Milky Way Alliance. Public opinion amongst the various countries were clear. Everyone needed a brave and responsible leader now, not someone weak. Kushawan's strength and dominance won the support amongst all the countries. The efficiency was indeed improved. Everyone sent their elite forces to the Oracle Star, with Aslan as the main force. The intelligence agencies of all the countries were also mobilized. Any organization would leave traces. They could only showcase their strength this way and follow the traces. They had indeed messed with the wrong person. The fury of the Aslan Empire was not to be trifled with. They had now utilized the entire power of the Milky Way Alliance. The first to bear the brunt was the Heaven's Arrow Federation. This country was found to be closely related to the saint. To be exact, their higher-level officials were all suspected to be part of the saint. They would have fallen into a circle of infinite wrangling in the past. That was no more. The army was mobilized immediately and a war erupted. The sudden change was overwhelming. War was suddenly so close to everyone. Such an evil organization should be cleaned up thoroughly. The 13 elders gathered once again in the Temple of the Oracle Star. It was a forced meeting this time. The plan was formulated by everyone and had the intended effect. They just didn't expect the counter-attack of the Milky Way Alliance to be so strong. This was happening because they had angered the Aslan Empire. Frankly speaking, it wouldn't have escalated to such a scale if not for the fact that they wanted to capture the princess. They had underestimated the Aslan Empire, thinking that it would drag on for a while. They had forgotten that Kushawan was a master at this. If not for them, Ryan would probably still be on his seat for some time. However, the Milky Way Alliance was now mobilizing their fleet in such a short time. The Saint might have certain advantages in technology, but this wasn't a huge advantage, especially in the face of Aslan and Atlantis. This was going to be a fierce battle. The Saint had also suffered unprecedented losses in their attack. However, the 13 elders weren't concerned about this. This situation wasn't out of their expectations. The problem was that the people required by the oracle weren't all here. Great Elder, most of the plan succeeded, however, we have yet to capture Wang Zheng and Aina. A greatest king and a princess that the prophecy required, how could they not be here? Especially Wang Zheng, who had shown many signs of being the oracle. The attack this time had pushed the Saint backwards several decades. The cost was still acceptable. They had to grasp this opportunity even if it meant their forces were depleted. That was something all 13 elders agreed on. The Great Elder tapped on the table gently. The situation isn't too good, but the general direction is still the same. 13th Elder, you go personally to Aslan to talk terms. Get Wang Zheng and Aina here personally. If not, we'll send the corpse of Wei Yan back. Not only that, a video of a princess being R***ped and killed will be released to the world. Kashawan should know how to choose. The other elders were expressionless. This move was really cruel. Kashawan perhaps might sacrifice Lin Weiyan for national interest, but she would never be able to accept this. It would bring shame to her entire country. Yes, Great Elder. Are we going to open the wormholes in the space of Saint? Haha, no need. They should have broken in already. Just do as I say. The greater the number of masters sent out, the better it is for our oracle plan. The other elders agreed. Aslan would instead be helping them. Wang Zheng would definitely come if Aina were to come. The other masters would be foils. One stone could kill many birds. Great Elder, the fleet of the Milky Way Alliance is heading towards us now. We don't know how much time we need to look for the oracle. What should we do if the oracle has yet to appear when their forces are upon us? I don't think our forces will withstand the Milky Way Alliance's fleet for long, the 5th Elder said with some worry. They weren't worried about losses, but about the progress of the oracle. The Elder smiled. The inferiority of humans will always exist. Mobilize all forces, confuse the Milky Way Alliance. Make them go in circles if this is going to be chaotic anyway. Everyone understood immediately. Experience really mattered. The power of rumors was the oldest trick in the book. Rumors were real and fake at the same time. The Heaven's Arrow Federation was indeed controlled by the Saint. It was possible to spread the rumor that the puppet master behind the Heaven's Arrow Federation was Arbiter. Everything was done with the secret support of Arbiter. The Saint had quite the talent in controlling people. Rumors were scary because of the human heart. It was difficult to care about the relationships between individuals, let alone between countries. From the beginning, everyone had an inherent understanding. How could a small terrorist organization be so bold? There was obviously a backer. Who stood to gain the most with Aslan humiliated and in chaos? Arbiter had the greatest motive. The competition between the two empires was not something new, neither were proxy wars. Things were becoming complicated. This was no longer just an attack against the Heaven's Arrow Federation. Only the Great Elder, the 2nd Elder, the 6th Elder, and the 13th Elder were physically on the Oracle Star. The rest had attended through video conference. Some of them wanted to be there personally but couldn't. They had their own positions to deal with now that the Milky Way Alliance was encircling them in a frenzy. Their job was to put the Milky Way Alliance into a civil strife. The 2nd Elder stood in front of the baptism spring and watched the foundation spurt out and fall back, creating ripples in the pool. This was a cycle, a perfect cycle. The 2nd Elder was only second to the Great Elder in terms of status, qualifications, and strength. He's making a move. The aged voice was full of vigor but could not hide the long amount of time that he had lived. He had the resources to balance the Great Elder as the 2nd Elder, however, his time was nearly up. This was why he supported the radical plan of the Great Elder. However, support didn't mean unity. That would be the best opportunity to leave the human body behind. The elders knew that the oracle would descend on a young person. It would be a new leader, but none of them were willing to be eliminated and rot away. That was why they had chosen to seize the opportunity. It was necessary, however, how many people could gain from it? Could all 13 elders obtain immortality? He didn't believe that. If anyone were to stagnate or walk the wrong way, that would be equivalent to waiting for death. All of his actions would only be benefiting others. A voice came from the shadows. Master, the Great Elder summoned Lear, the underdog on the grounds of the transformation plan. Lear, Earth, the Locke's family. He knew this name. A small pawn of the saint which had always had the personal attention of the saint. There were many of such hidden pawns. However, the saint wasn't almighty. He could uncover clues if he really wanted to. He didn't need to confront the saint now, but he would do whatever it took if there was an opportunity. At least until now, it seemed like everyone had a chance. Some matters were not even discussed with their own cronies, but that didn't matter. There would be traces as long as there was action. You could get the truth as long as you were willing to spend time. According to what the second elder knew, Lear, Xie Yuxin, Meng Tian, and Wang Zheng were always of interest to the Great Elder. There could be others, but the traces of these four were the least obvious. Given the Great Elder's foxy nature, it had to be of great importance to the Oracle. Only the Great Elder knew about the links after all. He was also the sole person who knew about the prophecy. He might have shown it during the meeting, but was that really all there was to it? The situation was different now. The Oracle was definitely linked to these people. The Great Elder had to have his reasons for not choosing a candidate for the Son of Saint. He had even summoned the Lear, who had failed in succession. How could this not be linked? It's time to get Tan Yuyang in touch with Xie Yuxin. Success wasn't achieved by sitting or waiting, but by fighting for it. They had, unfortunately, failed at capturing Wang Zheng. Therefore, the best choice now, other than Lear, would be Xie Yuxin. Meng Tian was a woman, so there wasn't a big chance. Moreover, her interests were now tied with Xie Yuxin. She would come by herself as long as they were to capture Xie Yuxin. Has the younger princess of Aslan arrived? Yes, she's under the surveillance of the Great Elder. We're unable to get near. Hee, could that old fart like to listen to songs? The second elder gave a needle-piercing-like chuckle. Everyone had secrets. The oracle was like a bonfire, attracting countless moths. Xie Yuxin could feel the situational changes within the candidates of the Son of Saint. The teams were weird. Each of them was trying to capture the attention of the saint but realized that their competition was going for the same thing. An unverified piece of news was circulating. The younger princess of Aslan had been invited to the Oracle Star as well. Newcomers naturally brought more news, which traveled really fast on this isolated planet. Most of them were excited about the news. They didn't want to remain hidden. They had to prove themselves, and the chance was coming. No matter whether it was true or not, he had to decide on his stance on the Oracle Star. Time was running out. It might seem chaotic, but the 5 main sons of Saint were still intact. The strong forces made the other son of Saint feel a sense of despair. The strong dragon could not pressure the local snake, but what if the local snake was a mythical dragon fiercer than the strong dragon? The best course of action to gain opportunities was to approach the 5 sons of Saint. The problem was that the saint seemed to be preparing a huge move, so it wasn't time to act rashly. Meng Tian, Yuan Jing, Menga, Huo Dong, and Kong Siki were on high alert. They had also collected a lot of shocking information. Was the saint trying to create a war through their moves? The Oracle Star might be mysteriously strong, but could they defeat the Milky Way Alliance? Or perhaps, they really had the ability to defeat the Milky Way Alliance? That was outside of their ability. Huo Dong, Kong Siki, is there really no way to crack the lock on the saint's internet? Xie Yuxin asked. They glanced at each other. We don't have enough equipment to do it. Moreover, we've never seen anything like their internet rules before. It's truly amazing. Given time, we will be able to do it. We are only able to understand the internal structure currently. Kong Siki nodded. If my suspicions are right, the Oracle Star is a place similar to Roland Garros. This planet is actually a decoy. It is a huge artificial planet, or a semi-artificial planet. Everything from the Earth to the atmosphere is actually a complete 3D structure. This technology is at least 50 years ahead of the Milky Way Alliance. Of course, this is just talking about technologies available on the market. Perhaps the Atlanteans and Aslan have similar technologies, but I think it's more advanced here. Kong Siki and Huo Dong were truly amazed. As non-combatants, they were addicted to the feeling this new technology brought to them. This was a successful application of theory, so the impact was huge. Does that mean that the fleet isn't the most dangerous? Meng Tian asked. Yes, we can think of the Oracle Star as an interplanetary spacecraft. I suspect they will use the taboo power. The Saint isn't known for being law-abiding. If that's the case, the Milky Way Alliance fleet will be at a huge disadvantage if they don't know about this, Huo Dong said with worry. I think we should find some way to get this information out, Kong Siki said as well. The problem now is that the Oracle Star only allows a one-way passage. Even if we were to get the information out, what are the odds that the Milky Way Alliance would listen? Menga suddenly added. Everyone went silent. Xie Yuxin smiled. We only have to do our best. I don't believe that only we are clear-headed. The Saint has prepared such a huge chessboard. I believe they will make a big move soon. We have to stop and wait for an opportunity. Also, I think the kidnapping of Lin Weiyan is true. We need to find out where she is being held. Okay, leave this to us. We'll sneak into the system and see if we can obtain any trace of information, Huo Dong said. Xie Yuxin nodded. Our backup should be here soon as well. Backup? Yuan Jing asked with surprise. The Milky Way Alliance might not have made any movements before, but they must be coming with a two-pronged approach this time. The fleet will definitely come. The competition for the Son of Saint is huge. If the relevant departments of the Milky Way Alliance still can't solve the algorithm, they might as well head home, hug their kids, and pray. Therefore, special forces should be arriving soon with our acquaintances. Xie Yuxin gave a small smile. Meng Tian's eyes was filled with confidence while the rest were baffled. Wang Zheng will come, Meng Tian explained. Wang Zheng, Yuan Jing and the others frowned. This name was familiar to them even though they were on the Oracle Star. The greatest king, Her Highness Aina's boyfriend, and even the top master of the younger generation, his popularity was that high. However, this was the Oracle Star. The physical techniques of humans here had reached a scary point. The effects of Ability X were obviously restricted. Yuan Jing and the rest could feel it very clearly. Ability X was suited for group mech battles, while ancient martial arts were more suited for individual fights. An ancient martial arts master could take on two Ability X users of the same level. It's better to count on yourself than others at this point in time. A pilot without his mech is useless, Menga said. He had always been arrogant. More importantly, he knew that Meng Tian had been secretly in love with Wang Zheng all this time. Xie Yuxin smiled. Wang Zheng is someone who can create miracles. I'm filled with expectation now. Wang Zheng's strength is most likely only at A rank at most. Even if he were to come, his opponent might not be the candidates of the Son of Saint, but the elders themselves. He wouldn't be able to fight the heaven ranks. Meng Tian said worriedly. This was a dreaded problem. The heaven rank masters were too formidable. From the compilation of the latest information, the Saint made such a big movement because of two things, but it can also be said as one thing. Xie Yuxin extended a finger out. That is to choose the Son of Saint. This is a large-scale illegal gathering, definitely not for tourism. There must be a rule which will become our opportunity. The next thing is that there must be an ulterior motive. They must be searching for something, and they must find it no matter the most. Therefore they will not retaliate easily. This is our chance. How would you know? Menga didn't really believe Xie Yuxin. My ability X is a prophecy type with something else. Then please prophesize if we can leave here alive, Huo Dong said excitedly. Xie Yuxin grinned. Destiny is like a river which will fork out any time. Time and space are still too strong for us. What we have to do now is choose which path will suit us best. If we could prophesize a fixed result, that wouldn't be a prophecy any longer. That being that could do that would be a god and that would be a fixed destiny. **T, you might as well keep silent. The others weren't so relaxed. Xie Yuxin was different. He seemed to be filled with excitement about the whole chaotic situation. It was really interesting. The Saint and the Milky Way Alliance. Each had internal spies. What would be the result of this chaos? No one knew. Wang Zheng, him, everyone were just pieces on this chessboard. It was just that Wang Zheng and him were different from the rest since they already knew that they were chess pieces. Xie Yuxin and Wang Zheng were seeking different objectives. Wang Zheng's target and thinking were actually very clear and simple, but not his. He didn't care about the results, only about the process. It seemed like the saint was still making smart moves. It was most fun watching the drama unfold from within. There was a person that everyone had to watch out for, and that was the prophet. Wang Jung was on the Saruman snake, heading to the Aslan Empire. The space shuttle that Aina had gifted him had its use after all. He just didn't expect it to be for such a grave situation. The elders of the saint had sent their requests along with a video of Wian. This angered the Aslan Empire. It was the first time the Aslan Empire had nowhere to vent their anger. There was no time for Aslan to consider. They could accept the death of their princess, but they could never accept humiliation. However, forcing Aina to participate in the rescue mission, wouldn't that be more dangerous? The saint had no credibility after all. Everyone else could go, but the question of whether or not Aina should go was a point of hot debate. Aina had made her decision. They could find a decoy, but the saint weren't fools. The technology in their hands was more advanced than Aslan's. There was no telling what they would do to Wian if they were provoked. That was something Aina could never accept. She would live the rest of her life in self-blame. She could be rash or childish, but she decided to go. She had made the preparation to die with Wian together if need be. Wang Jung brought Mu Zhen along. The Milky Way Alliance had cracked the port of the Saint World. The team was set. They had to utterly destroy this black-hearted organization. It was the first time Kashawan didn't care about Wang Jung and Aina being together. The world cared not about their love life now. Aslan's pride was on the line. Wang Jung, as the greatest master of his generation, had an important task on his shoulders, the most important of which was to protect Aina. Wang Jung didn't manage to meet Aina. He was obviously not taken seriously by the royal family of the Aslan Empire even though he was the boyfriend. The whole Aslan Empire was in a confrontational state and were not welcoming to outsiders. Wang Jung was in Xiao Fei's laboratory. Now that Kashawan was the temporary president, the Aslan Empire had naturally become the main force of this campaign. The other countries were happy as well. They were willing to support it but were unwilling to be the greatest strength. It was best since Aslan wanted to be the world police. Moreover, the main purpose was to save their princess, so they should naturally contribute more. Some of the bigger countries didn't agree. The superficial reason was certainly sound, but they knew there were repercussions to this. The Aslan Empire could also obtain certain diplomatic and geographical privileges through this battle. It was easier to invite the devil in than to send him away. Xiao Fei was indeed more fragile looking than Wang Jung had ever seen her. Dr. Xiao had been staying up late cracking the codes and was finally done with it. However, that didn't give rise to any optimism. That was because it was finally completed because the saint had loosened their security. Xiao Fei felt that she could have completed it given time, but it would definitely not have been so fast. The Milky Way Alliance wasn't concerned. They would rush in even if they knew there was danger, even if it was forced. The people needed answers, the other countries needed answers. They had to deliver even if they knew it was a trap. However, Xiao Fei felt that it was very dangerous. The other end of the tunnel might have certain restraints. It would be really dangerous if the other party wanted to kill everyone. Wang Jung wasn't an outsider, so she confided in him. Wang Jung was awaiting Aslan's final decision. He would accompany Aina no matter what. I'm not stopping you, but it's really dangerous this time. You should know. They don't know the codes. It looks similar, but it's totally different. This is not something that can be overcome with numbers. Xiao Fei was very worried about this. Wang Jung had realized the seriousness of the matter with Xiao Fei's explanation. He was a warrior, so it was easy to understand the dangers of this application. How to balance it? Wang Jung didn't think that the saint could defeat the Milky Way Alliance. The question was, what was the price the Milky Way Alliance would have to pay? Teacher, I think we should focus the issue on the problem after the transmission. Can you change the position after adding on to the program? Wang Jung suddenly asked. Xiao Fei's eyes lit up. You mean change their preset waveband and send it somewhere other than the Oracle Star? Yes, I'll control it on the way. I can disrupt the coordinates. It would be better to land anywhere but in their place. As for the others, we'll have to depend on luck. Wang Jung said. Xiao Fei clapped. Why didn't I think of that? They might have their plans, but I have my means as well. Even if the other party's technology was better, they couldn't control it entirely. She only needed to add a disrupting coordinate on Wang Zheng. You're smart, that will give them a surprise. Wang Zheng didn't smile. Xiao Fei hadn't thought of it only because she was too tired and focused. However, the problem wasn't solved for Wang Zheng. He was worried about Wei Yan's safety now. What kind of request would the other side give once Aina and him arrived? They were playing into the hands of the enemy. They wouldn't have any negotiating power left. I'm not gonna bother with you any longer. I have to start working on it immediately. There isn't much time left. Xiao Fei was straightforward. She would do something once she set her mind to it. Wang Zheng's Skylink rang as well. It was Kashawan. The Prime Minister had finally remembered him. Zhang Shan was obviously one of the targets of the Saint. A high-level space ability X was rare even in the entire Milky Way alliance. However, the Saint had already arranged for his capture. Zhang Shan had suddenly pulled the members of the Saruman snake into the abyss to train one day before their launch. Doing things that came into their minds in the heat of the moment was something no one could really understand. Of course, they weren't heading into the dangerous zone. They were just there to experience the atmosphere. Zhang Shan obviously had good luck by his side, having escaped from a situation. The disciples laying in wait for him didn't manage to get him. They were actually discovered by the increased security of Elite Academy X. Finally, they had to pull out with the space transfer device originally planned to transfer Zhang Shan out. Wang Zheng knew that this mission was extremely dangerous. Aslan had enough masters. There was no need to drag Zhang Shan down as well. It was enough for their pathways to be joined until this point. The rest was for him to face alone. Solar System. Mars. Lai Xin was undoubtedly another target of the Saint. However, the disciples of the Saint on this mission were taken aback when they reached Mars. Lai Xin had disappeared after arriving on Mars. Search. It was impossible for the Saint not to be able to find someone once they were set on it. If they didn't, it only meant one thing: the Sage sect had intervened. Mars was such a place. They were really stubborn. The spiritual rule of the Sage sect made it difficult for the Saint to do anything there. The leader of the team was terribly disappointed. They weren't afraid of death nor failure. The most irritating thing was that they couldn't even find her. The Saint had given the highest level of order for this mission. They would definitely be dead if they were to return like that. Therefore, he thought of requesting support. They weren't afraid of death, but they should at least find the target's position. The news reached the Third Elder. They thought that the Saint would be enraged, but the order was to give up on the mission on Mars. This was the first time the Saint knew to back away from difficulty. Was Mars strong? It seemed to be the case. However, the problem was that the Saint was wary of someone on Mars. Lai Xin's disappearance was definitely because the Sage had realized something. There was no need to touch him in this case. They had a legacy as old as the Saint. Moon, Achilles was standing in front of the screen, watching a battle that had taken place 20 hours ago. 20 Saint assassins pretending to be tourists were surrounded by more than 500 members of the Moon's defense force in a resort. Dozens of unmanned law enforcement machines hovered around and locked onto each assassin. In the distance, a space jamming device was working, locking down the space within 5 kilometers of the vicinity, disrupting the space transmission technology of the Saint. The Moon could still handle a situation of this scale. If not, their face would be lost big time. The order was to catch these terrorists alive. The assassins with their escape routes cut off went crazy. They attacked the surrounding army. They were strong, but the Moon's defense force mobilized this time were the elites of the elites. They even had mecha on standby. They didn't need everyone alive, just 1 or 2. However, just when Achilles thought the battle would end smoothly, a sudden change happened. It started with a flash, and a fire started violently from the assassins. Self-immolation. The scene was unbearable. There were broken limbs everywhere. More than half of the special forces on site were hurt and none of the Saints' forces survived. The screen faded and Achilles' face remained cold. I should have been there. The sage's warning was to ask us to hide. He guessed that we wouldn't be able to capture any alive, but we just didn't expect them to be so crazy. Milo's face was pale. Their losses were huge this time. The problem now is how did they get to the Moon? If they were originally from the Moon, where did they install the bombs on themselves? Murderous intent shot out from the eyes of Achilles. The Doyle family and the higher echelons accepted the proposal from the sage. Simply put, there was no big dispute within the moon. First, the Doyle family's influence remained the same. After 2 glorious times, the moon knew that the third time had arrived. The sage's teachings were absolute. The moon and Mars were not in contention for the center. They had to wait for opportunities if they wanted to return to the center. How would the future be? Achilles didn't know. Wang Zheng, this would be a tough ordeal. Milo shook her head helplessly as she looked at Achilles' eyes. Sage sect, deep in the Saint Mountain. Lai Xin just had breakfast there when she received intelligence from Achilles. The saint was indeed crazy. Lai Xin wasn't afraid in the least. She was eager to fight on the Oracle Star. She was so excited to practice her 265-point Heavenly Blaze technique, but she couldn't go against her master. Hey, are you Lai Xin? A young boy of about 2 or 3 years old entered and stared at Lai Xin curiously. A 12-year-old girl followed. Xiao Ya, how many times have I told you not to run about? Senior Lai Xin, master wishes to see you. Lai Xin nodded and looked at Xiao Ya, who seemed strangely familiar to her. She came to the sage's training room and glanced at Sage Odin in meditation. Lai Xin calmed down. She did not have the same arrogance and willfulness as when she was outside. She was just a disciple of the sage. She stopped behind the sage and bowed respectfully. She then sat cross-legged quietly. Time passed and the rush and excitement in Lai Xin's heart gradually faded. The Heavenly Blaze technique was coming along rather well. Sage Odin came out of his mediation after some time. Lai Xin. Yes, master. Lai Xin opened her eyes and answered respectfully. The inner universe is actually not difficult for an ancient martial arts cultivator to unlock since they have a solid foundation. This is just a matter of understanding. However, the inner universe is different from the true mastery of the original force. The original force was the source of strength of humans. Yes, master. I feel the power of the Heavenly Blaze technique. It's indescribable. Even I'm a little afraid of it, Lai Xin said respectfully. Haha, fear is right. There was only one 265-point cultivation technique in this world. You are now using the second kind. This is a power that can peep into the origin of the universe, the sage smiled. Master, is the other kind as powerful as mine? I really want to try. Lai Xin's fighting spirit was ignited once again. Lass, the other kind, haha. Sage peered at the light rain outside the window. The entire world was crazily fighting for the oracle. There was no need to tell Lai Xin now to distract her. This 256-point blade technique was an attempt by Mars to get ahead. They tried many times over the past century, all of which ended in failure, except this attempt. However, there was still a gap from the other technique. Nonetheless, it was worthy of the title of the second martial technique in the universe. You've met with Xiao Ya. Yes, he's Lai Ya, the son of Lai Guang. The Lai family found him after much effort. Buzz. Lai Xin's calm heart experienced ripples, but she suppressed it quickly. It was clear, though, that a trace of gentleness and gratitude was in her eyes. This was what Odin wanted. There were all kinds of side effects when dealing with heaven-defying power. It would be ruined easily with one wrong step. That was why he took care to do things step by step, so that Lai Xin was complete. That was also necessary for growth. Xiao Ya will be your disciple. Get along well during this period. Yes, this disciple understands. I'll think of Xiao Ya as my own child, but outside right now, Lai Xin felt that it wasn't good to just stay here like this. What do you think you can do with your current strength? Odin asked. Master, I'm the successor of the Heavenly Blaze technique. You can leave whenever you defeat me, the sage smiled kindly. The strongest and most mysterious ability in this world was the ability to prophesize. Who was the strongest then? Definitely not the A-rank prophet classified by the saint. That was just a peeper. It was the sage of the sage sect on Mars. They had been observing the world silently, protecting Mars and waiting for the third reincarnation. Mars certainly also had the power of the saint, but it was within control. Mars didn't want to have direct conflict with the saint. After all, the second era used to be their destiny, but it too would pass. Mars would fight when the time came. Everything was still unclear now. Lai Xin hesitated. She continued asking about Wang Zheng this time. Master, is the oracle that the saint is searching for related to Wang Zheng? She would never forget how her master rang 12 bells for him when he first came to Saint Mountain. Lai Xin wasn't stupid and was also one of the people around Wang Zheng. This guy was definitely fishy, but what was the problem? Wouldn't that fulfill the mysterious legends? He has something special on him. He might be, or he might just be a sacrifice to bring the oracle out. The river of life is an illusion. There is nothing fixed. Sometimes, mankind will win against the heavens, and sometimes, mankind would be played by fate. Odin paused and continued saying faintly, however, the river of life is changing. It will never change course if there isn't a big enough power to intercept it. Mars wanted to change its path from this dramatic vortex to save its vital energy, yet they could not lose this chance to rise up. Even Odin didn't dare to take Mars' fate as a chip. If the bet was right, they would be able to weather through. If the bet was wrong, they would break the rules and balance. Neither the saint nor the current regime would allow Mars to continue existing. That was something even the sage could do nothing about. They had to be careful since the route would be chosen by themselves. Wang Zheng and Aina were prepared for the transmission. This was the condition by the Oracle Star to open a channel especially for them. At the same time, Xiao Fei traced the coordinates to prepare a channel for the special forces. The Aina in front of him was indistinguishable from the original Aina. Even a DNA test would not be able to tell the difference. Aslan had confidence in their disguises. Kashawan didn't intend to let the real Aina go from the start. That was within reason. Wang Zheng was also more assured this way. It was best to end with him. He didn't want Aina to take the risk with him. He no longer cared about the reaction of the saint. Actually, Yan Xiaoshu and Yi Zisu were strongly opposed to Wang Zheng's participation in this mission. Wang Zheng was the only one taking a risk in the end. Aslan might have even done it on purpose. Why would the saint find trouble with Wang Zheng? Could Wang Zheng be more valuable than Aina? They actually needed two people, one Wang Zheng, one Aina. Could Wang Zheng have been added in by Aslan? The transmission process was simply too dangerous and the saint's strength was imaginable. The co-group, Yan Xiaoshu, and Yi Zisu's future relied on Wang Zheng. They had gone together for too long and it was commendable to obtain the results of today. This wasn't some SIG competition with rules. They were dealing with the saint, who dared to mess even with the Aslan Empire and kidnap their princess. What would they not do? Even if they were just being plain selfish, they didn't want Wang Zheng to go. Wang Zheng had a bright future ahead of him after having won the greatest king. Aina was still fine and there was the Milky Way alliance for the rest of the matters. There was no need to assume the responsibility for everything. In Yi Zisu's words, Wang Zheng was just a common man, he couldn't take on more. All the warnings fell on deaf ears. Wang Zheng had to go. It wasn't only for Wei Yan. There were countless people responsible for her rescue. Wang Zheng received news from a very trustworthy but surprising source. Meng Tian and Xie Yuxin were also trapped on the Oracle Star. This information was sent by Lear. He didn't know how Lear had obtained this information, but it was obvious that he was on the Oracle Star and had obtained power. Wang Zheng had always suspected that Lear was also a candidate of the Son of Saint. He could almost confirm it now. There was no basis for it, it was just his judgment. Moreover, he knew why Lear said what he had said. He was beckoning him to go. It was impossible for Wang Zheng to shrink from it now that he knew this. He felt guilty towards Meng Tian. As a man, he felt responsible for Meng Tian. He couldn't just leave her in the lurch like that. Lear understood Wang Zheng, and he managed to get Wang Zheng there without any wasted words. He just didn't know why Xie Yuxin was there. They hadn't been in constant contact these years, but Wang Zheng knew during their school days that Xie Yuxin was someone smarter than him. Wang Zheng found relief that Xie Yuxin was there as well. Aina and Wang Zheng didn't have much interaction. It wasn't strange that Wang Zheng realized she was a decoy. Only some quick eye contact was necessary between lovers. However, none of them brought this up. Kashawan didn't either. She knew Wang Zheng was smart, and if he really loved Aina, he wouldn't let her rush into danger. Wang Zheng held the jammer that Xiao Fei had given him. The time of transmission was nearly upon them. Prime Minister, the special forces are ready, Mitchell said. Kushawin nodded through the glass window, waiting for the other party to open the portal. The coordinates were clear, which would ensure that the transmission should succeed this time. Xiao Fei's plan was adopted as well since they didn't know whether there was a trap set for them there. That was why the jammer was there. It would bring them to an unknown place on the Oracle Star, which might be in the sea, or land, or even in space. They could only hope for the best. Wang Zheng and Aina were on one side and 86 members of the Special Forces were on the other. Most of them were from the Aslan Empire. Only 30-odd were from other countries. They were all below the age of 35 and were elites. They didn't care about ancient martial arts nor ability X, they were only responsible for killing and rescue. Buzz buzz buzz. The red alarm rang and transmission power started to gather. Less than 10 of the Milky Way Alliance countries could do this. Technology decided their strength. A door of light opened and they tried to capture the signals in a frenzy. The other portal also started forming. Wang Zheng didn't hesitate to take the lead when the energy reached a steady state. Aina followed closely behind. She was also mentally prepared as a soldier. They were swallowed by the light entirely in no time. The special forces entered only a few minutes after Wang Zheng. Aina was in deep sleep within the Aslan Palace. The palace was on high alert. Not a fly could enter. Lin Feng and the rest were there as well. They weren't participating in the rescue mission this time. The battle this time was already on the country level. They didn't need individual heroes. The future of Aslan could only be assured if Lin Feng and the rest stayed in Aslan. Kushawin's judgment was still the most appropriate even though her own daughter was in danger. This was also why Aslan could always obtain the largest amount of support. Aslan was also 100% behind Kushawin's decision. The country was her most important daughter. There had to be sacrifices for the things you wanted. The tranquilizer given to Aina was enough to make her sleep for 2 days. No matter what the result would be, the future of the Aslan Empire had to stay intact. Lear completed what he needed to do as well. Luo Fei and him had completed the first round of injections together with dozens of experiment subjects. He knew that Wang Zheng would definitely come. That person didn't know what retreat was. He didn't know what the future would hold for him, but he would feel sad if Wang Zheng was gone. The story wouldn't be so sad if there was someone with him. Can you give me a piece of cake? I hear that our taste buds might change once we transform, Luo Fei said. The staff did not know whether to laugh or cry. They knew these two subjects were special, but they would be lucky if they could emerge alive, yet he was already thinking about the changes in taste buds. Lear frowned slightly. Luo Fei, are you sure? He really felt that it was unnecessary for Luo Fei to try this out with him. This was his last privilege. Luo Fei smiled. I was just joking to lighten the mood. They say the success rate will increase if you are in a good mood. Lear entered the petri dish first resolutely. Lear was tough on others, but more so on himself. This was a struggle. Death or becoming a monster. They didn't matter to him anymore. He had no more consciousness. Everything in the future had nothing to do with him. If he was lucky enough to retain his consciousness, he would make everyone pay the price. Fatty went in as well. The other subjects were filled with helplessness. None of them were willing, but they had no choice. The experiment had to continue. All the petri dishes were closed and the instruments showed the data for each subject, all of which were observed by the Great Elder. Master, everything's going according to your plan. Wang Zheng's here, but they used a jamming sequence, so we have to search for them, the 13th Elder reported. The fake Aina wasn't out of their expectations. Their target was Wang Zheng anyway. Wang Zheng would definitely do his best, owing to his guilty conscience of using the fake Aina. There's no need to search. The Oracle sacrifice has started. The Great Elder smiled a small smile. The weight of many generations had finally become a reality with him. Yes. The 13th Elder was also excited. They had a strong power now that even the power of the Oracle couldn't possibly go against them. However, what was important was to what extent the Oracle could present itself in the successor. Was it the same as what they thought? The whole Oracle star was just a sacrifice. 13. Pass the order of the Saint Church, let's get started.